You have to choice. Would you like for or against?
For.
So for the motion. Basically say for the motion, Mallorca International against the motion. Thank you, your behalf. We'll be back here when we start. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
But I think maybe you can see by the big smile on my face that I am genuinely very happy to have you all here today, and I really still remain so excited that our school can be part of this competition. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody, tutors, the rest of the team and teachers at our school and students, when I say that it really is a thrilling experience for everyone involved. Thrilling because it's unique, and thrilling because we are required, because the seriousness and the prestige of this competition requires us to keep challenging ourselves and keep pushing to be better and better debaters, to be more and more knowledgeable about what's happening in the world around us, and to be more and more eloquent in how we can talk about it. And in many of these debates, competitions that we have fantastic discussions afterwards. And one of the things that always seems to come out of that is how important it is for this generation to be able to think on their feet, to be able to form opinions, form ideas, and explain themselves and express those ideas and opinions. And I think there are few things that are as valuable as debating and the art of debate to get the younger generation to that position. So I want to welcome everybody to our school and say thank you for being here, but also maybe use this opportunity as a thank you to the providers and the facilitators of this competition, because it's really a very inspiring thing to be a part of. Okay, good.
Wonderful, Sally. Yes, that's the one. Thank you very much indeed. And, well, what else can I say? Good morning, everybody. And thanks, of course, to Sally and the Miss Miller and the Mallorca International for such a warm welcome, and especially that coffee this morning. Just must explain. We hear there's some snow in London, so we can't complain. 10 schools participating again this year. You all know who they are, but I'd like to reiterate it for the old video there. And that is I haven't got the number written down. The 10 of them: Agora, Academy, tell me what I've forgotten, Belver, BIC, Queens, San Cayetano,
Lycée Français,
yeah, and Mallorca. I'd also like to thank the sponsors, who without this would not be possible. The Palmer Pictures, MCC Tennis, Clínica Juanera, Mallorca Bulletin, Ticket Travel, Imperial Properties, Hotels Hills Boutique Hotel, and IBEX Insurance. The team that Sally was referring to is, of course, Harry, Viv, and Ron sitting over there, as well as myself. A great team. They've been with the debate project for years, which is absolutely marvellous. Today, apart from that team, we have as timekeeper Alison Tom. On the jury, we have a spokesperson, Sarah Collett, we have Carlos Vestar, and we have Vivian, who's standing in for Aubrey, who was called away to Boston at short notice, so in no way he could change his plans. Mallorca International team today: Harry, Jasmine, and Seth. And on, Mallorca International. And the French Lycée team, Kenza, Brian, and Eloy. The motion today is gender equality of leadership positions does not exist in international organisations. Gender equality of leadership positions does not exist in international organisations. Debating for the motion, French Lycée. Against the motion, Mallorca International. Over to our timekeeper, Alison. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, both teams. So you will go first, French Lycée. Can I just ask for the judges, are you all sat in the order you're going to speak? So Harry, you first, and so you are, just so you know. Okay, so first, Kenzie, would you like to?
Choose. Would you vote for a 34-time convicted felon with 2 pending criminal cases, a known sexual predator, racist, sexist, who has filed for bankruptcy 6 times? Or would you vote for a qualified woman? Guess who US citizens voted for in the recent presidential elections? Here's a hint. At the head of the world's most powerful nation is now the criminal president instead of a woman president. Yes, 2 weeks ago, Vice President Kamala Harris became the latest woman to fail to break the gender barrier to presidency. The United Nations, the World Treaty Organization, the World Trade Organization, the G7, the G20, these are all international organizations that the United States are part of and actively contributing 15 to 27% of their fundings. If such a significant contributor to international organizations shows such stark proof of gender inequality at their very top, what is stopping the UN or other organizations from doing the very same? Good morning. My name is Kenza Muragou from the Lycée Français International de Palma. Today, my teammates Elodie Nicolas, Oriana Cledon, and myself will argue that gender equality of leadership positions does not exist in international organizations. I will begin by demonstrating that women lack equal opportunities for career advancement. Then Eloy will prove that the gender gap between men and women is still very real. And finally, Oriana will dispute that we lack family-friendly policies in international organizations. By definition, gender equality means ensuring equal and fair opportunities, representation, and treatment of all genders for the same position. However, women do not have the same opportunities as men. Why? What 2 words, glass ceiling, the invisible barrier that prevents women from reaching the highest levels of decision-making regardless of their qualifications. 23% of cabinet positions are held by women, while 77% are held by men. 22% of senior leadership positions in the World Bank are held by women, while 78% are held by men. 20.
Would you not say that just because of some of these big international organisations having more men than women, does that not mean that there are a lot more, there are still a lot of organisations that have equal genders in leadership positions, therefore disproving the argument that it does not exist?
But I don't really understand what you mean. There is a gap, it is not equal. There are more men in leadership positions than there are women, and that is unfair. 20% of leadership roles in international organizations globally are held by women, while 80% are held by men. Do you still not see the inequality? Well, here's more. Last week, my father was telling me about one of his best friend's daughters at dinner. Alicia works at one of the most prestigious international organizations in Barcelona and was recently shortlisted for promotion to Director General. 5 candidates had been determined for this position, she being the only female. She was considered because she had consistently outperformed all her colleagues in the last 3-year HR reviews. However, one singular question was able to erase this shining opportunity of the future. Do you plan on being a mother? Yes, I do, she answered. And in a snap of a finger, she smashed against that ceiling of glass. Here's the catch though. Ask a man the same question, and he would be praised for wanting to raise a family and being driven and having a successful business. Not discarded. This is not equality. This is not fairness. This is not an opportunity. This alone is proof of that gender equality of leadership positions does not exist in international organizations. Thank you very much.
Good morning, honourable judges, timekeeper, members of the opposing team, and distinguished guests. Thank you, judges, for giving us this opportunity to debate here today. Today, we are here to debate the motion, gender equality in leadership positions does not exist in international organisations. My team is debating against the motion. I, Harry van der Straten, will be explaining our interpretation of the motion and why, although the distribution of genders in leadership is not completely equal, it does still exist in many companies and is growing. The second speaker, Jasmine Dawson, will be explaining how UNICEF and UNESCO are clear examples of where gender equality does exist within leadership positions of international organisations. Our final speaker, Seth Heath, will be explaining different examples of organisations that have reached gender equalities in leadership in recent years. The motion may sound straightforward, but if you think about it enough, it can get somewhat convoluted. For example, it specifically says leadership positions. To add on to that, it also says does not exist. And as we are going to prove, while not all companies are yet in a position to demonstrate equal allocation, it definitely does exist. Finally, what is an international company? An international company cannot be a small business or a public company.
Because information. True equality means everyone should have the same social position and treatment. However, it is not the case in most international organizations, as you said. How would you explain this?
I do acknowledge your point that it is not, but your own point does disprove itself. As you did say, most organizations do not have gender equality, whereas the motion says that it doesn't exist. But if even a few of them do have gender equality, then that means that it does exist. To be clear in our interpretation of the motion, we are interpreting this to mean organizations and businesses that function in many different countries and continents. While gender equality certainly has not been put into practice by every international company there is, that does not mean that it doesn't exist. In fact, many of these businesses have been making an effort to make gender equality a prominent part of their business. Many countries also have an equal workplace and leadership positions. Let me point some out to you. Sweden has about 45% women managers. France has 46% of women on boards. The Philippines have 49% women in senior management, and South Africa has
Point of
40.
information, we're talking about international organizations, not like disparity in general.
While your point is true, while This is a good point, and even though I am talking about in general here, just because of that, I am also including that there are many international organisations that are in those countries that have gender equality. Adding on to that, according to McKinsey & Company, gender equality in senior manager or director roles has increased from 32% in 2015 to 37% in 2024. That may sound like a lot less than total global equality, which is 50%, but is only 13% less. And with more and more attention being drawn to this issue by the day, and with some giant international organisations leading by example, as my fellow speakers will go on to demonstrate, it is sure to reach total equality soon. Now, this begs the question, why is there a situation where more men are in leadership positions? Well, this is mainly because of the social expectations of each gender before the last few decades.
Sorry, time's up.
Thank you.
This scale is a simple tool. It's meant to represent balance, fairness, and equality. But what happens when we add weight to one side over and over and over again? We get a serious imbalance, right? Well, this is what we see in workplaces across the globe every day. Women who are doing the same job as men are constantly subjected to inequality, whether it's pay opportunities or leadership roles. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. What if we could fix imbalance? What if, just like this scale, we could make the workplace truly equal, truly fair for everyone, regardless of gender? Imagine how much more productive and successful our organizations can be. Good morning, my name is Eloïna Nicolas, and today I will argue in favor of the motion that gender equality in leadership does not exist in international organizations. To prove my point, I will explain why the wage gap between men and women is not just a matter of numbers, but a matter of fairness and an excruciating reality. In international organizations, as in many other sectors, gender equality in leadership positions doesn't just not exist, it's barely even a goal for some. Women are still underpaid compared to men for doing the exact same job. And while the glass ceiling is a very obvious barrier, the wage gap are the invisible steps keeping women from rising to the very top. Why would you want to ascend in leadership positions if you're going to be paid the same as someone who is doing if you're going to be paid less as someone who is doing the exact same job as you? It doesn't make sense. In fact, let me hit you with some real statistics. According to the World Economic Gender Gap Report, in 2023, the global wage gap between men and women is currently sitting at a staggering 16%. This means that for the same work, women start working for free from the 6th of November to the end of that year. For every euro a man wins, a woman earns 84 cents. What about in leadership positions in international organizations? Well, that gap becomes even more pronounced. A 2020 report from the UN Office of International Oversight Services. Oh, sorry. Yes.
You talk about gender pay gap and the disparity. What about UNICEF, a country that works in 97% of all countries in the world that is achieving fair wages? Do you not see that does exist in some cases.
Thank you very much. That is a very interesting question. But UNICEF is one international organization. I'm talking about international organizations in general. And in general, they don't have equal wage. Now let's take a moment, a 2020 report from the UN's Office of International Oversight Services revealed that women at senior levels of the UN system earned on average 30% less than their male counterpart. No, you haven't heard me wrong. 30%! Now let's take a moment to think about the consequences of this. It's not just about the money, although, let's be fair, who doesn't want to be paid fair for what they do? This disparity has ripple effects on every aspect of a woman's career and life. Underpaying women means that they are not recognized as valuable as men. They're less likely to have access to the same career development opportunities, less likely to be promoted, and less likely to influence key decisions at organizational levels. In international organizations where policies are crafted, they have a special responsibility here. They should be setting the standard for what equality in leadership looks like, not talking about it in abstract terms. To quote former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, in 2023 he said, "There is no development without equality." If we want a more just and successful world, gender equality in leadership positions isn't just a moral obligation, it is a business imperative. Just as this unbalanced scale can become balanced, we must do the same for the salaries between men and women. Thank you very much.
Just to quickly go back to some great points made by the opposing team, we just want to show you that this isn't about what's right and what's wrong. We're asking if it exists or it doesn't exist. Good morning, distinguished guests, timekeeper, opposing team, and judges. Thank you all for giving us this chance to debate. Today, I'd like to speak to you about UNICEF and UNESCO, two international organizations that wield significant influence on the global stage today. These organizations are clear examples of where gender equality does exist, backing up our argument against the motion that gender equality of leadership positions does not exist in international organizations. Though gender inequality does definitely exist, our team and myself are here to show you that many organizations are working towards gender equality and that it does actually exist in two of the most powerful organizations in the world. First, we'll discuss UNICEF, a powerful, vital organization that protects the rights of every child everywhere. And we'll discuss how internally it puts gender equality as one of its main priorities. Secondly, we'll shine light onto UNESCO, an organization on a mission for peace and equal rights worldwide, and how internally it puts gender equality as one of its main priorities. Finally, I will show you the ripple effect of these two companies, how they are shaping the rest of the world and giving us hope that gender equality will continue to develop and grow in the future. UNICEF is an international advocate for children's human rights and works in 190 countries, 97% of all countries in the world. Without UNICEF, 122 million children's lives would be worse off. Regarding UNICEF's own gender equality, as of 2023, UNICEF has reached 48% female representation in its leadership roles, a rise from 2019 when the figure was 33%. Since 2020, UNICEF has launched a set of temporary special measures to achieve gender fairness at the senior level, enabling the executive director to be a woman, and just by these statistics, you can clearly see how gender equality does exist in international organizations. To finish our discussion on UNICEF, I'd just like to leave you a quote by a director at UNICEF. UNICEF's commitment towards gender parity at the most senior levels is unwavering. The results are evidence that we can shatter the thickest glass ceilings if we take focalized actions. Next, UNESCO, an organization that fights for human rights, including gender equality, around the world. Audrey Azoulay, a French woman, has been the Director General of UNESCO since 2017. Her leadership further reflects UNESCO's commitment to gender equality at the top, and shows that women with the same experience and knowledge as men are receiving leadership roles. UNESCO has even made a gender equality action plan.
Can you give any other examples of international organizations where gender equality exists? Because you're talking of only 2 amongst 100. So this is a very small minority. We cannot talk about true equality.
I do agree. For example, you could talk about Samsung UK, which is an international organisation because it's a phone company around the world, has reached 49% female representation in leadership levels. Back to UNESCO. It has created a gender equality action plan, which ensures women's career advancement through mentorship programs, leadership training, and gender-sensitive career development.
Point of information, 49% is not parity. How do you explain this?
Yes, 49% is not 50%, I agree, but you have to acknowledge the historically embedded justice, as you've explained in your speeches, that it will take time to mend, and my figure is from 2023, so it might have even increased from that. This not only proves that UNESCO distributes an equal number of... For example, in UNESCO, Joanna Harrell, an experienced professional who was asked to cover a leadership role higher than her own at UNESCO when a colleague was on leave. She did the role successfully, and after 9 months in that role, the role became officially advertised. She didn't get the role because she didn't tick the right boxes in terms of gender and ethnicity. There were already too many females at that senior development who were white and British speaking. This not only proves that UNESCO and other companies like it distribute equal number of leadership roles to women, but actually takes its commitment to equality one step further, ensuring that whilst women get fair leadership roles, they don't dominate, and both sexes...
Time's up, sorry. I'm sorry.
I know that in 2 years, I'll finish high school and go to university. Now, I want to study international relations. And once I graduate, I'm going to work for the international organization named Lawyer Without Borders. It seems like a solid plan, right? Well, I also want to be a mother. I'm still very young, but I know that I want 2 children. If possible, 1 boy and 1 girl. I want to be a mother in a long and distant future. Don't worry. We live in the 21st century, a time in which a woman can both pursue a career and raise a family. Or can we really? One day, during the interview for that team leader position I will have fought tooth and nail for, I will be asked a question. Do you want to be a mother? And just like that, my chances of getting that position will be drastically reduced. Just like Alicia, Kenza's friend, my future would be shattered in an instant. Hundreds of generations of women have suffered these injustices, and the fact that this is still occurring in 2024 is outrageous.
We're talking about this one company, but what about other companies, like as we previously mentioned, UNICEF or UNESCO, that would still give the exact same equal opportunity even if you did want to?
Right now I'm giving an example and talking about a general view of this point, but it's true that social stereotypes still exist in society, even though we say they don't. So if I say I'm going to be a mother, the interviewer is going to think, I don't want a woman who is going to miss 9 months of work just because she's going to have children. No, I'm going to take them. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges and honorable opponents. My name is Oriana Cledon, and I'm a student from the Lycée Français of Parma. And I stand before you today to argue that gender equality of leadership positions does does not exist in international organizations. Despite numerous commitments and initiatives aimed at promoting gender equality, women continue to be underrepresented in leadership roles. This disparity is largely due to the lack of inclusive and family-friendly policies, which create significant barriers for women aspiring to these leadership roles. Firstly, let us consider the glaring imbalance in paternal leave policies. In many international organizations, there's a stark difference between the maternity and paternity leave offered. For instance, the United Nations provides 16 weeks of paid maternity leave, but only 4 weeks of paid paternity leave. This significant disparity perpetuates traditional gender roles, placing a disproportionate burden on women of childcare. Consequently, women often face career interruptions, which hinder their professional advancements and reduce their chances of attaining these leadership positions. Moreover, flexible work arrangements are crucial for sustaining employees with family responsibilities. However, the implementation of these policies... Yes.
You mentioned how maternity leave and paternity leave are different. Isn't that because maybe women need more time to recover from the trauma of childbirth?
Of course, the natural process of childbirth does make women in need of more maternity leave, but the proportion of men who take the paternity leave is again lower than the proportion of women who take the maternity leave. Estimates suggest that only 30% of eligible fathers take paternity leave at the World Bank. The statistic proves that women still have to carry most of the burden of childcare, while men are encouraged to continue working. In the 2020 annual report, the World Health Organization announced that women held only 28% of the key decision-making roles. Surprisingly, not so, women hold 75% of the secretarial and administrative positions. This inconsistency forces women to choose between their careers and their families, a dilemma that men are less likely to face to the same extent. Gender equality in leadership positions does not exist in international organizations. Witnesses, facts, and figures support this statement. To deny it is to turn a blind eye on injustices committed to women every day. Thank you.
Good morning, esteemed judges, guests, and the opposing team. I stand before you today to argue against the notion that gender equality in leadership does not exist in international organisations. While there's still progress to be made, many international organisations are leading the way towards true gender equality in their top ranks. Companies like Unilever, IBM, and Accenture are setting inspiring examples by reaching or nearing equal representation of men or women in leadership positions. Unilever, one of the largest consumer goods companies in the world, achieved gender balance in its management and executive teams in recent years, proving that such equality is already beginning to be reached and proves beneficial to an organisation's growth and innovation. This achievement shows that when companies commit to diversity and inclusion, they create environments where creativity and diverse perspectives thrive, leading to innovative solutions and a broader understanding of the organisation's needs. IBM, a global leader in technology, has also made great strides, consistently supporting women's leaders and advancing them into high-level positions, even as CEOs. Let me tell you a story. 25 years ago, my mother was working in the car industry for Peugeot, and a spot for top manager opened up. And even though she vastly outperformed her male colleagues, she still didn't get the job because she was a woman. Now, this may seem like it's in favour of their argument, but that was 25 years ago. And what I'm trying to stress to you is that it's not the same thing 25 years ago as it is today. And companies such as Unilever are making strides to push for female equality. Accenture, a major force in consulting, has reached a goal of 50% women in key management roles, demonstrating that gender equality in leadership positions is no longer a distant goal. Assenger's approach to gender disparity shows with intentional strategy.
You keep on speaking about gender equality as a work in progress. However, that shows that it doesn't exist yet. How do you explain this?
As I'm about to mention with Assenger, they've actually reached a goal of 50% women in leadership positions. Demonstrating that gender equality in leadership is far from a distant goal. Assenger's approach for gender disparity positions shows that with intentional strategies, clear targets and unwavering commitment, significant progress can be and will be achieved. Their success serves as an example for other organisations aiming to balance the scales of leadership. Organisations like these are not sole examples, but represent a larger trend of global organisations actively promoting gender equality and creating environments where women have equal opportunities to lead. By setting and achieving ambitious diversity goals, these companies prove that gender equality in leadership is both achievable and beneficial to the success of any organisation. They illustrate that diverse leadership teams bring varied perspectives and problem-solving approaches, which are essential for driving innovation and maintaining a competitive edge in today's market. In conclusion, the presence of companies like Unilever, IBM and Assenger in leadership equality shows that gender equality in leadership positions does exist in international organisations, and it's a bold generalisation to say that there is no gender inequality in leadership positions. As more organisations follow their lead, the notion that gender equality in leadership is non-existent is disproven. It's not only achievable, but critical to creating stronger, more innovative global organisations. By continuing to prioritise and advance gender equality, these organisations pave the way for a future where leadership reflects the diversity of the world we live in, enhancing both corporate and societal progress. Thank you.
For 2 minutes to prepare your summary up.
This morning, my team have made a detailed explanation that equality in leadership positions does exist. We are not living in the world that we were living in 25 years ago, where a strong, competent woman like Seth's mother could not progress through the ranks and gain recognition and be awarded with responsibility that they deserved. Although equality is definitely not everywhere, numbers and statistics that we have showed you prove that it is rising and developing and is a reality in companies around the world. The opposing team have tried to suggest that the pay gap is a massive disparity in all organisations, though this is not a reality. We have proven to you that companies like Unilever, Assenger, UNICEF and UNESCO have 50% representation of pay disparity. They've also tried to suggest, they've also explained about the glass ceiling which stops women from progressing through the ranks. This is a fair point, but we have to acknowledge that companies are making progress and that there is gender equality in leadership positions in international organisations. At the end of what we believe has been a strong argument, we'd like to leave you with one final thought. Is it not clear that an increasing number of successful female leaders in international organisations speaks volumes about the progress made? How can we disregard the global advocacy for gender equality that has gained immense momentum? There is no denying that gender equality is becoming a reality, rather than an aspiration.
Harry, your speech was very interesting, but it simply wasn't about international organizations. Jasmine also mentioned that gender equality was a work in progress. Therefore, it means that it does not exist yet. And finally, Seth, you mentioned only a minority of international organizations. However, the motion says that equality is for everyone. Therefore, that means that gender equality of leadership positions does not exist in international organizations. In conclusion, the arguments presented today clearly demonstrate that gender equality in leadership positions does not exist in international organizations. Despite numerous initiatives, women continue to face significant barriers, be it the glass ceiling, the wage gap, or the lack of inclusive, family-friendly policies. These inequities are not just abstract concepts, but real challenges that women encounter on a daily basis. Therefore, gender equality of leadership positions in international organizations does not exist. Thank you very much.
Well done to both teams. There's been a lot of hard work done there in the background, I can see. But as both of you teams know already, this is a time when we open it up to all the others that are coming to listen to you and make their own conclusions. So who would like to open the discussion? What do one of you young gentlemen at the back think? Or one of you young ladies? Yes.
While both teams make very good points, I would just ask that what exactly is happening? Are we arguing that gender equality does not exist in workplaces yet? Or are we arguing that it might exist in the future and it's almost there? Because I think that although it already exists, we're not completely at the point where we want it yet. But it does exist. So I agree with both cases.
Well, as the jury are out, you can be really truthful about what you really think and not maybe what you had to argue. Would one of you like to answer this point?
I know
Yes.
that this was not the notion that we would try. Like, our ideal thing would have been to argue for, but I think there's still a strong argument to be had about against, and I think we did our best at showing it.
Yeah, we would.
Sorry?
We were trying to interpret the motion in a different way to say that it does exist in some cases, which means that it can't just not exist everywhere.
Well, I agree that our motion, it's proven by statistics. So we really do have to use persuasive skills to go around those actual numbers to disagree with it. But there are strong arguments, which the other team has used, that can show that it exists.
Yeah, in most debates we realize that we need in some way to play around with the notions of the motion, with what they mean and what we interpret, and the interpretation that we give it. So yeah, that's the interesting thing actually about debate, is how you use the motion.
Yes, ma'am.
For example, on our against script, one of the words we used as an argument was the does not as an absolute. And so that means that it exists nowhere. There is gender equality in very few international organizations in the world, for example, the UN. And so that's where we were going to play with. That gender equality does not exist as an absolute being wrong.
For the one or two of you that haven't been to these debates before, the challenge for both teams, all teams, is that they only know whether they're going to debate for or against the motion. As you saw earlier, half an hour before they actually stand up and speak in public. So that is one of the major challenges, that they are thinking for and against in all their planning, and only at 9:30 in the morning do they know it's one thing or the other at the toss of a coin. It's not easy at all. Who else would like to make a comment? This is what these debates are about, I'm sure, sitting there in the audience.
Maybe I could ask, we actually got a lot of females here today. Do any of the females in the room feel genuinely worried when they look to their future, that there could be prejudice against them because they are female. Is it something that kind of enters your head at all? I mean, I know you're a little bit far away from joining the workforce yet, but is that a thing?
What a good question, Sally. Come on, ladies.
And you guys are a little being a bit older, a little bit
Let's see
closer to
a
that.
shy smile there. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, I feel like that could be a problem in the future. I also think that like the presidents of the problem that's happening in America, the president of the Kamala and Trump thing, I believe that that's extremely unfair and that there was a bit of sexist
Who would like to add to that?
with that.
Or somebody who doesn't agree?
I believe that like it's progressing, so in the future and maybe when we are older and do join the workforce, they might not be entirely equal, but the equality would be much more balanced out.
What do you think that you yourselves can do to give yourself a better opportunity when the time comes? Because in 10 years' time and 15 years' time, it's going to go very fast, so you know, it's not that long. How do you see yourself entering into the work market? Yes?
I want to be a lawyer, but I also want to be a mother. And like the team against said, it's going to be very hard. I know that if I work hard and I don't let things like sexism in my way, then I will eventually get to the point where I want to be. And I feel like in 15 years or in 10 years, whenever I get to that stage, things will have changed massively and things like that will no longer matter as much.
Excuse me, can I have a word, please?
Notion that we need to work hard, where perhaps men don't always have to prove themselves as much. I give an opportunity over women when maybe they're not working as hard at proving themselves. I really liked your point about the paternity. I think that was something really to think about because it is this ingrained idea that women can do both, but should do both. And we don't think about that for men always. So maybe offering them the longer paternity leave or putting that out there or making that would help give that equality a little bit more. Because I think the worry for me as well is that yes, we can do both, but we're trying to juggle many more things than perhaps men are, and then they can focus on their careers and they're not necessarily having to prove themselves all the time in both.
Anybody want to say a comment about that? Oh, two of you, yes. Kenza, you first.
Well, I find it quite scary, honestly. Certainly we're progressing, thank goodness. Like, for example, in the UN, only 3% of women held senior positions. And then in the 80s, I believe it was 10%, 90s 20%, 2000s 25%, and around 2017, it was around 30%, I think. So it is progressing. However, with the presidential elections, we quite literally voted a criminal instead of a woman. We chose that it would be better to have a convicted felon and a sexist, a sexual predator, a racist at the head of the government instead of having a qualified woman, which is so crazy.
What I thought it was, I kind of laughed because when he mentioned when Seth mentioned Accenture, I really thought about mentioning it in the conclusion because a few years ago my mother works at Accenture and she was denied a leadership position just because they asked her if she wanted to have a child and she said, yeah, I do. And they said, okay, well...
I'm shocked that places still ask those kind of questions.
Thanks.
I don't think that happened anymore.
Anyone? I saw somebody asking at the back here. Did you put your hand up? No, not now. Oriana.
Me, I had a very good example. It was a story about my mother, but she didn't work in an international organization, so I couldn't use it. But when she was in university, she wanted to be an engineer. And when she stepped in the class, she saw it was all men and one other girl with her. And they had a very bad competition, them two. And on top of that, the teacher was very sexist and always gave her bad grades, even though she did more work than her other peers. And so she dropped out and joined psychology, which she is great at, by the way. So now she's a neuropsychologist, but it's crazy for me to think that she had to drop out because
she couldn't stand the pressure of being an engineer.
It's turned into a debate almost about the ladies and versus the gents, and certainly in terms of career. Ron, you're sitting quietly at the back, which is most unlike you.
But I'm a man.
Yeah, well, we did notice actually.
Of a certain age.
Certainly you can see.
Yes, that is grown up, and obviously I've seen the change. It's pretty interesting when you start to talk about organisations and how many women are in the organisation. I wonder what the head counts as some of the organisations you're talking about. The biggest employer in Europe is the National Health Service in the UK. And the percentage of females there is 60%. So I think that says something about how that works. How does it work? Could it work? Are the nurses asked, are you going to have a baby? Well, perhaps, yes. And then they can accommodate that. I think it's a good way forward. I don't see anything wrong with asking somebody, if I was employing somebody, and if you put the shoe on the other foot, I'm the chairman of the company, and I have to say, you're going to have a baby, are you? A friend of mine went through a personal experience with a young lady that he interviewed, and she said, no, I'm not having a baby. So 3 months into it, he saw on the media that she was pregnant, and we found out later that it was her sole intention to take the job. Now that's rather abusive of the situation, but you can see the dynamics of a man that has to run a business that sends, and the lawyer that's going to be here will probably be able to afford childcare. So that's something else that could come into the equation.
I think you were asking for... Do you want to share it, Sally?
Well,
I think you definitely got something to
we
say.
focused quite a bit on like whether women are going to have babies or not, but I actually think that it lasts. The prejudice that does still exist can last throughout your duration of time as a mother, because we have our children with us till they're 16, 17, 18, 19. And I do think that there is still quite often a perception that as a mother, you'll be the person who needs to leave the door at 5 o'clock because you'll be collecting your children and taking them to this activity or that activity and so on. And so I do think that it isn't just about that maternity leave that was quite rightly brought into the argument, but that it can cloud employers' opinions of women in general. I don't think that's the case all of the time, but I do think that often men are being able to see are seen as being able to give more in terms of work hours, in terms of focus to a role. So we need to smash down that prejudice.
So would you say it's a question of the employers, especially big employers who've got more room to move to, more jobs to fill, they should take into consideration, and indeed in their planning of their human resources, that they have so many women in the workforce who are going to need special hours or special treatment or different treatment. Yes, Laura.
A country where I saw that they reorganized really themselves is in Sweden, for example, where you can see that for the maternity leaves, for example, my parents have some friends that are Swedish, and it's the father takes a paternity leave that's as long or sometimes even longer than the mother.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very important for the child, because to have a relationship with your father is very important, and it's often something that's neglected and that the child doesn't have, and I think it really affords a lot to his mental health.
It's quite funny when you think about people in the company, if they have a husband and wife and both went up. How would that work?
Well, they will organise themselves.
It's a right to be able to have time with our children.
Yeah,
I can say like in China, no, we can't have children.
Yeah. And then we won't have anybody to look after me, you know. That's the thing, isn't it? The lack of a population.
Kathy, and then the last word again.
Well, I used to work for the largest British foot operator, in the UK, Thompson Holidays, and I was in charge of it, and I was based there, but I was working with 20 men, and I was the only female. And it didn't disturb me, but I would have loved to have had some more females around. I was never sort of, I was regarded quite highly, and many people said if I'd been a man, I would have been at the very, very top. I was not a man, and therefore I stayed in a certain level. And there was no direct sort of feeling, oh, well, she's a female, therefore she can't. But there was an underlying, that had she been a man, she would have been there. And that's the one thing that sort of, I'm glad I wasn't, by the way.
Yes, to answer your question, I think it's just a question of organization. For example, in our school we have a couple, like teachers, there's one male and a female, and they had kids, and so the woman took the first period of maternity and the father took the other one, so they both get to take care of the children at different times, but not leave at the same time. So I think that it's just organization.
Yes, I think, well, and another woman who's been through, Kathy and I know each other for a long time, going through the climbing from when I first started out in business a long time ago. In each step of the level, I was the only woman in the organisation. Every step of the level, I took over a job that had previously been taken by a man. And as I've said in another such debate, especially for the young women in this room, with respect to the young men, if you want to climb up that way, you can. There is a way to combine it with family, but you have to fight for it. You have to fight and get out there and show them what you can do, because they won't give it to you. You have to make sure that you want it and you're going to go for it and come forward with it. That's the way forward.
I just wanted to very quickly finish. Luckily, today at school we educate the children in a very equal way, and we push them to all have the same opportunities. So
exactly,
it should change.
It will. It is changing. It is changing, and it will change. But with that said, our jury are back. The most important bit. Sarah, are you going to?
Now, which lectern shall I use? Because I'm going to probably read. First of all, really, just to say, this for the judges has been extremely difficult because overall it's been probably the most impressive of all the debates that certainly I've judged, and I think we felt the same. Fantastic passion being felt by you, which I think it just shows how much effort and how much work and research and fact-finding goes into all of this. It really is incredibly impressive. So let's give them a round of applause. Some of the highlights for us were some of the phrases that we used. To deny is to turn a blind eye. Love that one. Let me hit you with some real statistics, and then you all sit up and listen straight away. It's really good. And also a little bit of humour came into it as well, which I thought was lovely because that also engages your audience. Anything that engages your audience is so good. So the pauses were working this time. People weren't reading or firing too many facts. So really the overall standard was very difficult to pick apart and say, who do we think is the best debater and the best school? But we managed. And so, first of all, to award the certificate for best debater, drum roll. Okay. Goes to Eloy. Yes.
Well done.
So, coming to the winning school, again, it was pretty close really, because we did have to sort of carefully look at it. But in the end, we came to the agreement that the winning school should be the Lycée Français. Well done to all of you. Very good. Excellent. Today.
Your certificate's upside down.
Well spotted.
Congratulations. Can I ask all the teams to come forward here and we have a little congratulations. Congratulations. Well done. Thank you. Well done. Yes, up again. Can you get us on in, Harry, or we squeeze up a little bit? Thank you. Great. Well done. Well done.